In 2023, Chicago elected Brandon Johnson to become its new mayor. Among other things, Johnson ran on the promise to raise $800 million for the city through various tax strategies. And one of those strategies became known as the mansion tax. The original proposal went something like this. It would change the 0.75% transfer tax that current Chicagoans pay when they buy or sell a home and raise that to 2.65% on all properties above $1 million. Obviously, this was met with a lot of criticism, and since then, Johnson and his committees recently came up with a compromise to the original mansion tax proposal. So in this video, we're going to go over what the new proposal is, as well as what kind of implications it could have on the Chicagoland real estate market. Hi, my name is Peter, and I'm a realtor here in the Chicagoland area. If you're looking to move here, or you have some questions about the Chicagoland market, feel free to touch base. All my contact info is down below. I'm sure that my team and I can assist you. One of the issues that people had with the original proposal was that it was a flat rate of 2.65% on all properties above $1 million. So Johnson's revised proposal implements a graduated rate broken up into 3 tiers. The first tier is that the transfer tax on all properties under $1 million would be decreased from 0.75 to 0.6. The second tier is that properties from $1 million to $1.5 million would be taxed at 2%, and the transfer tax on properties sold above $1.5 million would be increased to 3%, which effectively almost quadruples from the original rate. Now, it is worth noting that the higher rates would only apply to the increments above $1 million. For example, if you purchased a property for $1.3 million, you'd be taxed at 0.6% on the first $1 million and 2% on anything above that $1 million. Now, in Chicago, both buyers and sellers pay transfer taxes. However, the higher increments would only apply to the buy side. That being said, the 0.6% decrease would apply to both the buy and the sell side. Johnson and his team hope that the revenue that is going to be raised from this transfer tax increase, which they expect to be around at least $100 million a year, would be put towards homelessness services in the city. So to review, it actually seems that most Chicagoans would pay less in transfer taxes on their properties because the average Chicagoan home is about $350,000, which is well below $1 million. That being said, there are many that still oppose the new proposal, and most of that opposition comes from the commercial real estate sector. High interest rates and low investor demand for Chicago have absolutely plummeted the retail and office space in the city. In the first 6 months of 2023, commercial property sales totaled just $5.3 billion, which is actually a 51% decrease from the same time a year prior. And investors worry that this mansion tax would actually further damage the commercial sector in Chicago during a historically vulnerable time. Now, the mansion tax may actually have some unintended consequences as well, because if investors continue to avoid Chicago, then the city will miss out on all the revenue it could generate from those investors. But as a result, that money still needs to come from somewhere, so it is not unlikely that homeowners across all of Chicago would have to shoulder that difference with increased property taxes. Now, renters aren't safe from this either, because as you know, any expenses that owners get, they eventually get pushed onto the tenants, so their rates would increase. And what this really could end up doing is creating a bit of an unaffordability crisis in Chicago if the city doesn't get the revenue it expects from this tax. Now, the mansion tax is actually not a new concept, and in fact, Los Angeles implemented their own mansion tax this year starting in April. It added a 4% tax rate on properties over $5 million and a 5.5% tax rate on properties sold over $10 million. That tax promised to generate $900 million in annual revenue to also support homelessness services. However, in its first month, it only generated $56 million. Now, of course, it is such a small sample that you can't really draw good conclusions from it. In addition, a lot of people that knew this tax was coming pushed to sell their properties in the first quarter of the year. However, it is worth noting that it's not off to a good start. We'll see how the coming months develop. Overall, I agree that the homelessness issue is one that needs solving. However, I'm not convinced that it should all fall on one sector. On the residential side, for wealthier families looking to move into this area, they're probably going to choose the suburbs as opposed to the city where they don't have to pay such a transfer tax. As I mentioned earlier, if wealth continues to avoid Chicago, that revenue from property taxes has to be made up somewhere, and all Chicagoans are going to be expected to pay for it. Perhaps this tax would make some sense if interest rates were low and Chicago was a hub for all sorts of businesses and everybody across the country and internationally wanted to move here. Okay, then I maybe can justify it. However, interest rates are at a 2-decade-plus high, and Chicago has lost a lot of businesses over the last few years due to crime, property taxes, and various other reasons. So I fear that this mansion tax might end up kicking Chicago while it's down instead of stimulating its economy. So if money is really the cure for the homelessness issue here in Chicago, I'm confident that there are other ways that we can generate that income instead of just using the real estate market. Now, regardless, this is still just a proposal, and in order for it to appear on the March voting ballot, a resolution authorizing the referendum would have to be passed by January 3rd. Proponents of the tax hope to present it on September 13th to City Council, with the hope of getting it approved by October. So what are your thoughts on the mansion tax? Do you think it's good for Chicago, or do you think it's going to end up hurting Chicago in the long run? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you have any other questions on Chicago and its real estate market, feel free to send me an email or stick around on this channel where I got a lot more videos. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.